Hi, I'm Randy Robison. Welcome to Life Today, special digital edition. I'm here with author and speaker, and you probably know her, Lysa TerKeurst, a longtime friend of the ministry, and she's just been out there ministering to a lot of people in wonderful ways, and at the same time, going through some hard times. Her new book is called It's Not Supposed to Be This Way, and I like the cover. Welcome. Good to have you back.
Thank you. Great to be here.
I like the cover.
Yeah, we did that intentionally because, oftentimes when people find themselves saying it's not supposed to be this way, it's because something unexpected has happened in their life and they feel like life is turned upside down.
Yeah.
And so that's why the cover of the book, the picture, is turned upside down. And it takes on even more significant meaning as you get to the very end of the book. I actually wrote an allegorical ending. If you've ever read C.S. Lewis and Screwtape Letters,
Sure.
Of course, that's a different kind of conversation. That's a conversation between the evil one and some of his demons. But this is an allegorical ending to this book where it's an imagined conversation between God the Father and Jesus Christ about those times when our life turns upside down and his perspective of it. So the cover has a lot of nuance, rich meaning that you kind of unpack throughout the message.
That's a bold move from a writer's standpoint to imagine a conversation between God and Jesus.
I know, right? And I apologize before I even launch into it for the reader. I just say, please know this is an imagined conversation. I'm not trying to put words in God's mouth or words in Jesus's mouth, but knowing the heart of God and knowing the heart of Jesus, it actually was just this revelation that I got one day, and it was very personal to me. I wrote it in my journal, and so when you turn to the back of the book, you'll see that it has different typeset and everything. It's almost like we just extracted it straight from my journal and put it in the back of the book.
Gotcha. You've got some interesting chapter titles, and I want to ask you about one because I stopped on that one. I went, what the heck is she talking about there? It's called Tan Feet.
Yes, okay. So when life sometimes flips upside down and you typically run at a pretty fast pace, there becomes a needed pause to pull back from some things. And so that happened to be for me during a summer season. And it's been a very long time since I had no need to wear shoes. But in these particular months that I really pulled back from going a lot and just instead really sitting and reflecting and praying and being with the Lord, my feet got tan. And so the chapter title actually came out of a statement that a friend made that said, wow, you have tan feet. And I thought, that's such a simple statement, but beneath that statement was the need for me to go slow for a little while. And so that's really what the chapter is about, is when life gets shattered, how do you go slow enough? How do you pull back from some things? Now, obviously, we can't pull back from everything, but how do we pull back from some things?
In a healthy way.
In a healthy way, so that we can learn to live slow enough to let the healing occur and to discover unexpected strength that we didn't even know we had. And that's actually the subtitle of the book. So the title is, It's Not Supposed to Be This Way, but the hope of this message is discovering unexpected strength when disappointments shatter you.
What kind of reception have you been getting? Because you've put a lot out there, and there's been a lot out there about you, and probably some speculation is probably not all correct and things like that. But you've been pretty transparent and open in some pretty brave ways.
Yeah. Well, I think it's really important to understand. One of my counselors said this, there's a big difference between privacy and secrecy. And I am naturally wired to be a transparent person. So it's very hard for me to keep secrets, but it is okay for me to keep privacy about some things. And so, the backbone story of the book, where this book kind of launches in, is me discovering that my husband of over 20 years was having an affair, and it shook me to my core. I've been through a lot of hard stuff in my life, but nothing quite like that. And so I kept that private for over 18 months because I didn't want to invite the weight of public opinion into our very private pain. But through a series of events, and the story was going to come out, I knew it. And so I had the choice to either let my voice be the one to get ahead of the story and tell it in the way that it needed to be told, wrapped in the hope of the Lord, and really as a call for prayer, not as a call for gossip. So I had the choice: do I go ahead and release this story and get ahead of it, wrap it the way that it needs to be wrapped, or do I let it leak out and then spend the rest of my life reacting to stories that other people said?
Right.
And so though I'd kept it private for 18 months, at that point it became very necessary for me to go ahead and tell the story. Not the whole story, though, because there are pieces and parts of it that are my husband's story to tell. And I wanted to be very honoring to him about that. So the first thing that went out, the blog, the night before it was posted, he and I were on the phone together, and I read it to him. And so he knew exactly what was going to be said. And as a matter of fact, in the writing of this book, he had the opportunity to read the entire book and make any edit that he wanted to.
Wow.
And I wanted to honor him that way because part of the story is mine and part of the story is his.
How hard is it to minister through all of that?
Well, it's extremely hard. And, you know, that's why there was a short season where I had to just hit the pause button on doing ministry, because sometimes when your faith gets so rattled because your feelings are screaming everything opposite than what the faith that you've built your life on says to you. I don't know, can you kind of resonate with that? It's like oftentimes our faith and our feelings come in conflict with one another. And so when that happens, it's important to hit the pause button and go and surround yourself with other people who, when your faith feels shaky, you can stand on theirs. And how you know that those are the right people to go and be with, find those people who you know have prayed more words for you than they've ever talked about you or that they've said to you. And I was very fortunate to have some of those friends. So in that season, I didn't have much to give, so I didn't. I stopped writing the book. Because, you know, when I started writing the book, I was going to tell the story in a very just highlighting the feelings but not giving the specifics of the story. And even as you read the book, you'll notice there's lots of details that are missing because I didn't want to unleash curiosity in people. I wanted them to have enough of my story to understand the depth of my pain so they could trust the advice that I was giving is real and could translate to their story. So, but during this season of the most extreme brokenness, I took a sabbatical from my ministry. I stopped writing the book. I canceled speaking engagements, and that was absolutely needed. But then there was a time that I had to make the choice, like it's never going to be easy to step back into the arena of speaking and writing, and so I really felt led by the Lord that I could go in His strength, and I learned a lot. I'm still learning a lot about walking in the Lord's strength because I still have days, even though, you know, this story has been unfolding now for close to 3 years. There are still parts of it that are excruciatingly painful. So, you know, I'm having to learn how to do ministry in the midst of the hardships. But don't we all, right? You know?
I suppose, but I mean, you've been through a lot, not just in relationships, but with your health. And I mean, to the outside world, it's a pretty amazing thing that you haven't just completely imploded or
Now there
pulled
may be
back
some
or
mornings at 2 a.m.
You feel it,
like
right.
where I'm crying in
But
my bed on my pillow. So I don't want to
No, you're not. You're not faking
present it.
No,
you know?
and that's what I was gonna say. Is the beauty of it is because you're being open and honest and real, not salacious and unnecessarily, not gratuitous in the detail, which is appropriate, but you're being real.
Yeah.
And I know by the reaction to the full studio downstairs, the people that are here to hear you on the broadcast show, you're reaching people because you're being real, and because you're sticking with the ministry, and because you haven't lost your faith or lost your mind. But even in the hardship, you're keeping it real. And you have to be seeing that. Is it? Maybe it's not as obvious to you as it is.
Well, sometimes I feel like I've just entered this place where, it's just an ultra messy place. But, I love to look at the life of Jesus. And there were times that Jesus was, perfect, obviously no sin, so completely sinless, but messy. And one of my favorite passages, and I've turned to it over and over and over, is in Mark chapter 14. As you read Mark chapter 14 and get a glimpse of Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane, there's this little verse that would be so easy to skip over. And it's when Jesus had Peter, James, and John with him, and then he was going to withdraw just a little bit to pray. And he tells his disciples, stay here and keep watch. And I've always thought that he was telling the disciples, stay here and watch for the soldiers that are coming to arrest me. Right. And that could have been part of it, but Jesus was perfectly God, so he knew the location of the soldiers. And the very next verse says, going just a little farther. In other words, still within eyeshot of these beloved disciples that were with him. And so I was reading it one day and I thought, I think part of this is Jesus telling the disciples, stay here and watch me in my moment of deepest sorrow. Stay here and watch what I do. And that's when Jesus prays and asks God to change the plan. And it says that he is in deep distress, like the deepest sorrow, and he even cries out so honestly, such deep distress, he felt like he was going to die. And boy, can I relate to that. I know what that feels like. I know what it feels like to feel like the weight of the impossible situation is on you. Obviously, Jesus was about to take on the sin of the world. I don't know what that's like, but I know what it feels like to be in such deep distress that you just basically feel like you're going to die. Yeah. And then I also know he says, he acknowledges that God can do anything. Like everything is possible for you, God. So take this cup from me. And I've cried that same prayer. Sure. God, everything is possible for you. You could change this person, change this situation, fix this circumstance. You could right all of the wrongs. So why aren't you doing it? And the great hope in that passage, and this is why I think Jesus wanted us to watch him handle his moment of deepest distress and sorrow. Jesus then utters 9 earth-shaking, hell-shattering, demon-quaking words. Yet, not what I will, but what you will, O God. And that has been the place that I have had to learn to get to in all of the circumstances that I'm facing. Not one of my suggestions to God ever fixed my husband. Not one. And I think if you had to nail me down and say one lesson, Lysa, just one lesson that you've learned from this, I would have to say it's trusting God means surrendering the outcome that you feel is the only good outcome that a good God should write. Surrendering that and saying, yet not what I will, but what you will, oh God.
That's just a little bit. Pick up the book. There's a lot more depth there, a lot more encouragement, a lot more wisdom. What's the website for the book?
It's not supposed to be this way.com, but you can also link to it if you want to have a little easier route, which I don't know if it's really easier. You can go to Lysa TerKeurst.com, which is not really that. Yeah. But or you can just Google. You can find the book by just Googling "It's Not Supposed to Be This Way," and you'll find it.
Great. You can also pick it up at Life Today, because I know we're going to offer it on the broadcast show for a little bit of time there. Of course, if you're watching this way in the future, just go to the website or go to LysaTerKeurst.com. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching and sharing this interview. Be sure to check out the social media for Life Today Television, and you can connect with me on Facebook and Twitter. And if you haven't already subscribed or followed this channel, do it now so you can see more of our great guests.